What would you do with a camera that's so small that you could clip anywhere? This is the DJI Nano, and it is a tiny thumb-sized camera that has pro features built into it so that you can get a great looking image out of a tiny little camera. This camera has a 1 1/3 inch sensor, 4K 10-bit D-Log, rock-steady 3.0, 200-minute battery life, waterproof, and it can magnetic mount anywhere. So if you're ready, let's get into it. And I just want to say a special thanks to DJI for sponsoring this video. All right, so let's dig into what this camera is, because on the surface, it's a small, tiny, compact action camera. It's actually much smaller than the Action series of cameras. And it's also set up a little bit differently. If you remember back with the DJI Action 2, you had this stackable design. It was a very interesting camera. And they've basically adopted that stackable design so that you have a camera that has no screen on it. It's just the camera. And then you have a secondary screen that can attach right onto the camera unit or be used wirelessly as a wireless monitor. And inside the DJI Nano, you have internal storage. And then in the monitor, which is called the Vision Dock, you can put a micro SD card. And so how this works is you can record internally on the footage on the camera. At any point, you can actually take the footage from the camera and move it over to the micro SD card. So it's a little bit different, but having this design opens up to use this camera in a wide range of possibilities. So the camera itself is magnetic on the back and on the bottom. So you can attach this to different things that you find in your environment, whether it's like a pole or a wall that's metal, or just somewhere where you want to set down the camera. You don't have to have a special mount to hook this up because it hooks up magnetically. However, when you are mounting it, the cool thing that DJI did with this series of camera is that you have the same mounting setup that you have with any of the other Action series of camera or the Osmo 360. So you don't have to get any new mounts to be able to use the Nano with any of the previous mounts that you have. And these are both a magnet and also they clip in. So when you're using something like the pole, you can just clip it in, use your selfie stick, get the shots that you need, and then be able to pull it off without having to screw anything off. And also you don't have to worry about this coming detached because you have the clip mount. Makes it super stable in all the different ways that you're using it. For me, when I was out shooting with this, I was mounting it to the outside of my Jeep, getting a lot of different footage. I had a chest harness on and I had this mounted on a roller coaster so that it wouldn't fall off. And they even have a new headband, which has the same magnetic clip mount that you find on all the other attachments, but this one just goes right on your head. And so I was using this when I was out in the ocean, and I didn't have to worry about the camera ever falling off because it not only magnetizes and clips on, but it also clicks in so that there's no chance of the camera actually falling off. And when you want to use this camera with the screen, you just stack it underneath. And it's an OLED HD touchscreen, and you can use it with the screen either facing you, or you can turn it around and have the screen facing behind the camera. So whether you are filming a subject or filming yourself, you could easily flip this at any point. I think one of the coolest features when I'm working with this Vision Dock is that it turns on automatically when you turn on the camera. And when you take them apart, it's automatically linked. Like there's no downtime, there's no waiting, easily pops on and off. And so you could be setting your camera up and use this as a wireless monitor. And I was doing things like getting into my truck and driving, and I could have my wireless monitor up on my dash, see what the camera's getting. I don't really have to worry about missing the shot because I can always see it on the wireless monitor wherever I have the monitor with me. But let's talk about what's inside this camera. So this is an all new 1 1/3 inch sensor. This is a 4K camera. It shoots 4K all the way up to 120 frames per second. Now, in normal video mode, it goes 4K 60. And when you pump it over to the slow motion mode, that's where you can get the 4K 120. So if you want that super slow motion, you can get it all the way up to 4K 120 frames per second. Now you can shoot in 2.7K, you can shoot in 1080p. But one thing that's cool is that you don't have to just shoot in 16:9 resolution. You can shoot in a 4:3 resolution, so that if you want more of the sensor, to be able to edit later, or you want that 4:3 image, you can shoot the full 4:3 sensor, or you could shoot in the 16:9 or 9:16 if you rotate the camera. And the big thing with the DJI series of action cameras is that you get 10-bit D-Log in this tiny little camera. So you can match it up with all of your other footage, be able to color grade, and you get a lot more dynamic range. So in the DJI Nano, you have 13.5 stops of dynamic range. In camera, you could get this log-looking footage, which preserves your highlights and preserves the darker parts of your image, so that when you bring it in to edit, you can create your own look that's going to match your other cameras or just give you more creative control. And so in this video, I shot a mix of standard profile and also a lot in D-Log M. And whenever I shot in D-Log M, I've used my set of adventure LUTs that I've created specifically for D-Log M footage to be able to color grade all of this footage fast and quick. And if you want more information about those LUTs, you can find out more down below in the description. Now, in terms of the field of view, you have a 143-degree ultra-wide f2.8 lens. So this can be used in lower light situations if you need to use this camera when you're shooting and it's getting a little bit dark out. And working with this camera is very intuitive. So if you've worked with any of DJI's action cameras, it's going to be pretty much the same. So when you have the camera turned on, you just swipe left or right, and you get to all your different menus. You have photo, you have video, you have slow motion, and you have time lapse. So like super simple, but when you dive into each one, there are more options. So if we go into, say, photo, and we swipe up, you could do your different aspect ratios, whether it's 16:9 or 4:3, and you could do things like you could have a countdown, or you could do a burst mode and have it timed based on how many images you want to shoot per second. If you go over to video mode, you could change your resolution and your frame rate, but you could also shoot in 4:3 aspect ratio. And then when you're shooting in video, you have access to different stabilization modes, and I'll show you those in a second. We go over to slow motion, you're going to have different options. You could go 4K, 2.7K, 1080p, but when you drop it down to 1080p, you can go all the way up to 240 frames per second. In 4K, you have up to 120 frames per second. And then you have your time-lapse mode. So when you swipe up in your time-lapse mode, you could be doing time-lapses or you could do a hyperlapse. And one of the things I like doing with this camera is just put it on my dash to get some time-lapse shots as I'm driving from location to location. Whenever I'm making a video, just having these different shots that connect from one spot to the next really become useful. And so what I've noticed is playing around with this camera, it becomes very easy to be able to just mount this camera, say inside my Jeep or outside my Jeep real quick, and grab a shot that's used as a transition. Now, there's one more mode called the super night mode. And so I'm just recording this with a flashlight right now, pointed actually the opposite way. This is meant to be used in lower light situations. It's nighttime or you don't have a whole lot of light. You could use this mode and your footage is going to look clean even in lower light situations. Now, you're a little bit limited. You can't use all of the features that you have in the video mode. However, I'm still shooting in 4K 30 frames per second with rock steady turned on. And yeah, it works great for darker situations. Also, when I went down to the beach with my family, I was playing around with filming my kids in the water with this camera, but it was just so easy to be able to keep this camera on me in my pocket and pop it out and be able to get some interesting shots that I could use for whatever I'm filming. The great thing about the camera unit alone is that it's waterproof. So you don't have to worry about dropping this in the water or getting it soaked. I had this just in my pocket when I was jumping in the waves, or I mounted on my head when I was swimming through the water. And I was able to get some interesting shots that make it a lot easier to grab than other action cameras. And you might say, well, a DJI Action 5 is pretty small as is, but when you compare them side to side, it is a lot smaller and it's also much lighter. This camera, just the Nano itself, weighs 52 grams. Now with the multifunctional vision dock, that weighs 73 grams. So both components are very lightweight, and it really doesn't feel like much when you have the camera on your head, on your chest, holding it like this. I have like a little selfie stick right now. It feels like I'm carrying basically nothing. So this is a small camera that can really be mounted anywhere, and it's lightweight. Whereas with the Action 5 Pro, it like holding these side by side, I definitely noticed the Action 5 Pro has a lot more weight to it. So it's going to be harder to mount in different ways and just keep on you, even though it is still tiny and small. You want a smaller camera, the Nano is perfect. And one situation that you might want to use a Nano is just mounting right on your chest with the lanyard that they've created. So this goes underneath your shirt, and you can mount your Nano right at your chest. So you could get that POV perspective from your chest, or there is a hat clip that goes on your hat, or you could use your headband, and just makes it easy to get these POV shots with this camera, and you could turn it on and run it without even having to use the monitor. So basically you set up the settings that you want on the Nano, and then when you detach it, turn off the monitor, you could just take the camera out, turn it on, and you can start recording in the settings that you had already preset up. So it makes it easy just to always have this in your pocket as like a secondary camera. And one thing I appreciate with this camera is that it's pretty easy to know which direction that you're filming. Because of its shape, if it's long, you're filming horizontal. If you flip it vertically and you can see the DJI is written out and you can read it, then you know you're shooting vertically. So there's no confusion, which other cameras I've worked with recently that are more of a square design, you actually have some confusion when you're trying to figure out, vertical versus horizontal. All right, so let's talk about audio with this camera, because you can use a wireless microphone and hook directly to the Nano. So right now I'm working with the DJI Mic Mini, but you could also use the DJI Mic number 2, and both of them will connect wirelessly to the Nano. So you just go into the menu system, hook up the transmitter, and you have bars on screen that show you your audio levels, and you can wirelessly record your audio when you're out filming. Now, when you work with the DJI Mic 2, you can do the backup recording on the microphone, and you also have a bunch of settings that you can play around with, and you can adjust everything with the microphone just on the camera itself. It's just like DJI's other cameras, like the DJI Action 5 or the Pocket 3. You can hook up 2 transmitters to the camera, and it's all wireless. So it makes it super easy if you want to do, walk and talks, you want to do an interview, you want to get the camera further away from yourself. Well, you can. Personally, I love putting the camera at a distance away and getting cool shots like this, rather than always shooting my videos like camera right next to my face, trying to vlog like that. Getting the camera away gives you just so much more flexibility to get creative with your compositions, really show the place that you're at, and just make something that looks different. Not just always, hand holding away from your face. Also, you could do things like turn around and enjoy the view while you have conversations. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so let's talk about battery life and record times, because it has an internal battery. There is no external battery for the camera or the Vision dock. So you have to rely on charging these and then take it out and film. So that's one thing you're gonna have to plan when you're out filming. You just have to make sure that you know how much battery you have left and just have a solution to be able to charge this when it does run out of battery. So the camera alone will last 90 minutes. And when you pair it with the Vision dock, it will last 200 minutes. And if you're running out of battery, you could fast charge up to 80% of your battery life in 20 minutes. And one thing that's cool is that when you're using it with the Vision dock, the power is gonna automatically be charging the camera and drawing from the Vision dock, so that if you are running out of battery on both the camera and the Vision dock, it will first run out of battery on the Vision dock, and then you'll have a full battery on the camera, so that you can continue to use this without having to use the Vision dock. So it just has a sequence so that you can have the most amount of battery on the camera to be able to record the longest. Now, in terms of internal memory, you have an option for 64 or 128 gigabytes. And as I mentioned earlier, you can put in a micro SD card in the Vision dock and transfer any of the internal footage directly over to the micro SD card. And if you just want to plug the Nano directly into your computer, it has USB 3.1 fast export. So in 2 minutes, you can transfer about 86 gigabytes, which is super fast. Now, in terms of accessories, I've kind of gone over all of them. You have hat clip, you have the hat head mount, you have the chest mount. I paired it with things like suction cups to be able to put on my car, or longer poles to be able to get up and away so I can get these wider shots. I've also used this camera out on a kayak, getting shots where it's hooked onto the kayak. Basically, any action camera mount that you can think of, we'll be able to work with this camera, because you just use the magnetic pronged attachments, and it lets you hook to any type of product that allows you to mount this camera anywhere. And I think that's a great use for this camera. Like, you could use this as your main camera. You're getting great footage, you can get great audio. But if you're someone who likes working with bigger cameras, well, this is kind of one of those cameras where you just always keep in your bag so that you can grab those POV shots or those action shots, or get something you otherwise might not have shot because it would have taken too long to set up. With the Nano, it's very quick to just like pop this out, grab a shot, hook it up to something, do a little vlog shot, pair it with a wireless mic. It just opens up the flexibility to get more creative and not have to deal with so much extra gear. All right, so let's talk about stabilization on this camera. So there's two different modes of stabilization that you have access to. You have rock steady, and then you have horizon balancing. So in the rock steady, if you sway side to side, you're going to see the horizon dip left and right. Whereas on horizon balancing, if you sway side to side, it's going to keep the horizon completely level the entire time. And you could go up to 45-degree angle with that horizon balancing left or right. Now, how this works is basically the camera punches in on the footage a little bit, and then it stabilizes it. So when it's turned off, you get more range with this lens. You get the full width of the lens. And then when you put on the different levels of stabilization, it punches in. You also have the ability to change the width. So you have the standard D-warp, which is what I'm using right now. So it makes it look not so bubbly, and it has just a nice wide look to it. Then you have a wide, and then you have an ultra wide. So if you're doing something like, mountain biking or something, you want to see the full width, then you could put it in that ultra wide mode. But really, all the modes are wide, and it just crops in a little bit, changes the kind of look of it. It de-warps it a little bit, but they're all wide lenses. So you have a few different options on how you want the image to look, depending on the stabilization and the width of the lens. Personally, I like the look of the Rocksteady. It gives you a nice wide lens, and it's still super stable, but you just don't have that horizon locked. And sometimes it's actually kind of cool to have the camera dip left and right. It just feels kind of natural versus the horizon balancing where it's just always stable. It's like a gimbal. So it just depends on the kind of look that you want and the kind of feel that you want for your footage. But check this place out. We're almost to the top of a mountain here in Big Bear, and like just all of these rock formations. Yeah, it's like mountains of rocks. It's cool. I mean, the big things for me with this camera is that it's small, it's lightweight, you got 10-bit D-Log built into it, it's got a 200-minute battery life, and it pairs wirelessly with the different DJI mics. For me, this is a camera that you could just take anywhere and just always have in your pocket. So I'd love to hear what you think about the DJI Nano. I'll put a link down below the description so you can see more about this camera if you want to check it out on DJI's website. And if you're someone who wants to learn more storytelling when you're out crafting your videos, then make sure you head over to the Creator Film School, where I teach you everything A to Z on how to craft your videos and be able to use more storytelling techniques when you're out filming. And so I'll see you on the next one.